Hi all, in this tutorial we'll talk about the new use hook. The use hook can be used to read the value of a promise or context, but in this tutorial we'll only focus on use reading promises. A promise is an asynchronous operation that can either resolve or reject, just like in this case fetch. So let's look at an example. Traditionally, when React was new and we didn't had these querying libraries like React Query or SWR, we used to do this. So basically now I've got three states and I want to show the data if there is data, but I want to show the loading, some loading thing, like a loading icon or loading text when the query is loading, that is the query is going or promise is pending, whatever. So I set the is loading to true, then I set it to false whenever I the request comes back, either the promise resolves or rejects. And then I want to set the data in the dot then where the promise is resolving and bringing me the data, or I am setting the error in case of dot catch when the promise is rejecting. So this is what I have. So if I refresh, you can see that it shows loading and the list, and this is the server basically I'm using. So this is the user's endpoint and this is an error endpoint. So when I hit the user endpoint, I get the data and the loading state appears. But when I hit the error endpoint, because I'm sending the 501 status, 500 status, it basically goes to the catch block, that is the promise rejects, and I get the error. So this is the implementation, simple implementation, but I had to write a lot of code for it. I had to have three states for it. After that, some recent libraries like use query and the use query hook from React Query or the use SWR hook from SWR have made life easier, and they can give us all these states like right out of the box. I don't have to use a use effect or have to have the states literally, this entire thing can be done in one line. Cool. But if you don't want to use React Query or SWR and you want fetch to work just like this, now there is a way to do that. So basically use is literally like using await. So it basically resolve promises. So it would basically return the resolved result of the promise. So in this case, if the resolved result of the promise is this data, when I would pass this promise to use, it would return me the data. So let's see how to use it. First of all, in order to use this use hook, you have to have React Canary version, because it's not in the stable version right now. So you just can write Canary in the version of React DOM and ESLint plugin React hooks, and you would get it. And or you can fork this repo. I will put a link in the description. Cool. So now what I want to do is implement the same thing but using the use hook. So first I will have the promise, so I will copy this. We see that this resolves the promise as well because we use dot then again. So we would want to resolve this promise to using the use hook. So I would remove everything here. Let's remove that as well, and I will say const data is equal to use and the promise. So now if I refresh, you can see that there is no loading state. Oh, because I'm hitting the error endpoint, my bad. Users. So yeah, you can see that when I refresh, there is no loading state appearing here, but the list is coming, which means it is working. It is literally just like an await, that it's like const data is equal to await fetch at something, but it works pretty easily. Now I want to show the loading state as well, and as well as the error, and we can do that using the suspense and error boundary components. So I'll say let's move this logic to some other component so that I can wrap it with suspense and error boundary. So I'll say const child is equal to same thing. Now the use hook component, I will say return error boundary, and I'll pass a fallback where I will say something happened, whatever. And then here I will pass a suspense boundary, and let me import suspense, and here I'll pass another fallback for loading state, and I will say loading, and here I would pass the child component. Cool. So now if I refresh, you can see that it shows the loading state and now it shows the list. So that is working. Now let's also test the error state as well. So I refresh, it shows loading and then shows something happened. So now I have done the same thing but with the use hook and in a much more scalable way, because suspense and error boundaries are much more better than keeping state for in like each place and doing stuff, because suspense and error boundary can have like 1,000 components inside wrapping 1,000 components, and whenever some loading will happen, some error would be thrown, you can use this to show the particular error or loading state. So that is cool. Now the final thing that the use hook can do, which is a thing no other hook can do, is it can be called inside a conditional. So I can do this as well. So let's say so I have a prop, let's say should load, and should load is a boolean prop, and I say let data, initially it's undefined, but if should load, then data should be equal to use promise, and let's say initially I pass should load as true, and I refresh, and it is working fine. But if I pass should load as false, then we'll see nothing happens. Why? Because this hook hasn't been called, and we don't see the error, nothing happens. So this is a powerful feature. A use hook is a very powerful hook which can be used to convert any asynchronous operation into a async await let syntax, and you don't need to use any third-party library. And for the loading and error states, you can use the suspense and error boundary components, and also it can be called conditionally. So that's it for the use hook. If you have any questions, you can comment down below and I'll try to answer them. If you have any requests as well, you can comment down below. As always, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.